I'm taking the current Straw Hats and putting them in Whole Cake Island. So what was once a quick secret mission could result in a defeat of a Yonko, and Sanji versus Katakuri is a real conversation we'll be having at the end of the video. But first we gotta set the scene, and for the most part things are pretty much the same. Sanji has gone to Whole Cake Island to marry Pudding to protect his crew. Jinbei is already in Whole Cake Island to tie up loose ends before joining the Straw Hats, but now the entire Straw Hat crew is pulling up as the Sanji rescue squad alongside a suicidal Pedro and Carrot when she was still relevant. Timeline wise, everything is still the same, so the Straw Hats don't know any new information. But strength wise, every single Straw Hat is at their current strength in the manga. So let's talk about how this goes down, because initially you might think this is a walk in the park. The Straw Hats are a Yonko crew now, the monster trio have all gotten a massive power up, but you gotta remember they're still walking into a Yonko's territory with no allies besides 2 minks. So in terms of manpower, if this battle drags on, I do think the Straw Hats will lose. So how the story plays out is actually going to be really important, and while I think initially the Straw Hats will try to be sneaky, there's no way it stays that way as we saw in the original arc. At the same time, certain events could still give the Straw Hats an upper hand, like Luffy could straight up just defeat Cractor right off the bat, taking out a commander. Meanwhile, having the entire crew is going to be useful outside of power, because now you have someone like Robin who's excellent in covert operations. Also, with Jinbei already being there, I do think he becomes a little more aggressive with his tactics, because now that the Straw Hats are much stronger and arriving as the entire crew, Jinbei is probably going to recognize that this will end up in a battle and the Straw Hats actually have a real chance. So I expect them to take action a lot quicker, trying to gather up allies with the Sun Pirates and Capone Beige. But the biggest X factor initially is how Sanji deals with the Vince Smokes, because that will be a game changer. Speaking of game changers though, I want to introduce you guys to the sponsor of this video, Into the AM, because they're actually a brand that Sanji would love as someone who is always decked out with drip. You see, Into the AM is a brand that is focused on quality, comfort, and creativity to bring you a variety of uniquely designed high-quality clothing. So while Sanji is busy running through the Vince Smokes at his current power, he could also look good while doing it in hoodies like this one. Or when he and the Straw Hats eventually make it out to Wano, he can rock any of these Japanese-inspired graphic tees along with many more options. And the best part is there are multiple bundle deals available, as you can get 3 graphic tees for $60 or 3 basic tees for $49.95. And on top of that, you can get 10% off your order by using the link in my description. So go check out Into the AM with the link below and get yourself some dope, comfortable clothing. But getting back to Sanji beating up the Vince Smokes, that's exactly what's gonna happen. At his current power, he should walk right through them, as he was already stronger or equal to all of them before. But the problem is he still will be limited because Judge has snipers on Zeph. So the first question here is, what will be Judge's decision? Obviously, him seeing Sanji with Germa jeans should change his opinion to a degree. No longer is Sanji the failure of the family, but actually the strongest out of all of them. But will that actually be enough for him to have a change of heart? Personally, I still think the answer is no, because Judge is a terrible human and he definitely is still terrified of Big Mom. So the person we gotta rely on to change this situation is Luffy, who should be meeting up with Sanji after defeating Cracker. But this time it's not gonna be 11 hours later in this perfect coincidence. Instead, this time I think he walks into town pretty openly after defeating Cracker, alerting the Big Mom Pirates and escalating the situation. Because of that, I think Sanji has to realize that there's no easy way out of this and he has to fight. Also, if Zoro is there, he's definitely throwing down with Sanji. But from this point on, the battle begins. The rescue team have successfully taken Sanji, but they have to fight their way out. The Vince Smokes are still a slight issue because they have snipers on Zeph, but I think Sanji and Luffy could just beat their ass and they'll be fine. So now we get to the main battle of this story, and this is where we can have some fun talking about some matchups. Obviously, the main battle that will decide it all is Big Mom versus Luffy, which we'll talk about at the end, but the next 2 strongest characters on both sides are Zoro and Katakuri. However, I'm actually gonna give the Katakuri fight to Sanji, because not only was it his arc, but it also fits better in terms of combat style. Also, Sanji will never fight smoothly, so it kind of works out. So with that, we have our second major battle set up, which I think is gonna be a really tight one that we'll discuss soon. But as far as the rest of the matchups go, I think they should all lean pretty heavily towards the Straw Hats. I think Zoro can easily take out the Thigh Model Smoothie. Cracker has already been taken out by Luffy. So the next big matchup we have is Jinbei versus Perospero. And while Mr. Perorin is one of the most capable Big Mom Pirates, I think Jinbei has him in the matchup. Daifuku versus Frankie also feels like the perfect matchup that we just never got, so we're gonna get it in this story. And once again, that's another fight I'm gonna give to the Straw Hats, with Frankie winning. Honestly, Frankie's power has been slept on down a little bit, he's been really strong coming out of the time skip. As we recently saw in Wano, he just walked through Sasaki without a power-up, so he should handle Daifuku pretty easily. Oven, on the other hand, is going to be a tough opponent for his matchup, which is Brook. Now, initially in Whole Cake Island, Brook made massive contributions by getting the poneglyphs, but this battle of heat versus ice is just too good to pass up. And honestly, this matchup I'm not completely confident in, because although Brook has contributed a lot recently, he hasn't really had a 1v1 fight at all in the story. So I can't say I'm confident he comes out on top in this matchup, but I do think he at least pushes Oven to a high diff. Meanwhile, Robin is gonna play the Brook role even better than he did, because she actually knows how to read the poneglyphs and she's even better in covert operations. So for the most part, the Straw Hats are gonna be pretty successful dealing with their matchups and completing their missions. The only problem is Big Mom still has like 100,000 kids. The people left to deal with them are Nami, Usopp, Chopper, Carrot, Pedro, the Sun Pirates, and Capone Beige. And honestly, that's actually a pretty good group to serve as a defense. Beige's strongest power is literally turning himself into a huge castle, and his crew kind of serves as his army. You also got a sniper in Usopp and Nami, who now has Zeus to both deal long distance damage. Chopper serves as a doctor, but can also cause some havoc in monster form. Carrot can kind of do the same in Sulong form, which hopefully Pedro does as well instead of killing himself. Meanwhile, the Sun Pirates can control the seas, and people like Zoro and Robin can help out when they're done with their fights. So overall, this unit is actually pretty well set up to hold out for a while until the top dogs are defeated, which gets us to the most important battles of this story, starting with Sanji versus Katakuri. And this is such a fun battle to speculate about because both sides are elite at observation haki. They have kind of similar personalities as well. In a way, they're kind of fighting for the same reason, to protect their family and friends. So the narrative is already strong for this fight, and as far as strength goes, I think it's closer than you think. Starting off with observation haki, while Sanji is elite at it, Katakuri definitely has a step up because of future vision. Now I will say, I don't think the gap is too big, because even in the original arc, Sanji dodged an attack from Katakuri. So by the end of this battle, I would not be surprised if Sanji bloomed his haki and also learned future vision just like Luffy did. Damage wise, I also think it's pretty close. Originally in Whole Cake Island, Katakuri definitely had the edge, as his haki was even better than Luffy's, but now Sanji has a Frit Jambe and was able to take an ancient Zoan and Queen. So honestly, I think I give the slight edge to Sanji here, but it's another close one. Where I think Sanji definitely has the edge though is durability, now that he's activated his Germa genes and has that strong exoskeleton. But on the other hand, Katakuri is a devil fruit that he's awakened and mastered, which gives him a boost across the board. So if we're talking about purely power, I do think Katakuri has the edge. At the same time, when it comes to power scaling, especially these what-if scenarios, it's more than the stats. We have to consider the scenario and the personality, and I do wonder whether or not these two come to an agreement in this battle. Could Katakuri recognize that the defeat of Big Mom will ultimately be better for his family, and that Luffy can actually accomplish that? Potentially, and if that happens, I think Sanji ends up winning in a similar manner that Luffy did. But even if he doesn't, I do think Sanji pushes him to the brink, and then Zoro could just come in and defeat him after dusting Smoothie. But of course, the main battle that really matters is the battle between an old Yonko and a new Yonko, with Big Mom versus Luffy. A fight that we still might get later in the story when we go to Elbaf, so this could be kind of a prediction. But once again, power-wise, these two are neck and neck. Both are absolutely loaded with haki and insane devil fruit powers. I do think in terms of ability, people are sleeping on Luffy a bit, because in terms of raw strength, I actually think he has surpassed Kaido. But if we currently had to rank those two, I would still put Kaido above Luffy, because Luffy doesn't have full control of his power. Big Mom though is a different question, because she is also completely out of control. This is something I talked about in my top 15 strongest of all time video, which is that despite being an absolute monster in terms of powers, Big Mom's fight IQ is slightly off. There's no reason why she did not use Advanced Conquerors Haki against Kid and Law, besides the fact that she just didn't think it was necessary. And ultimately that led to her defeat and potential death. So while Luffy is a bit of a crackhead in Gear 5th, Big Mom is also insanely unstable. And especially in this arc in her own territory where a wedding is getting ruined, she's gonna be even more unstable, which could draw out more of her raw power but also limits her effectiveness. So honestly, I think this battle comes down to who's not gonna lose their mind. Will Luffy be the one to gather himself together and take advantage and win the fight? Especially if somehow the Mother Caramel picture still gets broken and Big Mom goes really crazy? Or is Big Mom just gonna go on an absolute rampage and tire out Luffy in Gear 5th and win the battle? I think in the end, I'm gonna go with Luffy and trust him more, because he has always delivered as the main character. If you want to hear another story, here's a video about what if the current Zoro was at Baratier.